Hey, good afternoon, everyone. This is the Vermont House Committee on Commerce and Economic Development. It's Tuesday, February 25th, 2025 at it's like 2:52 in the afternoon. So we're here to have some committee discussion on these crypto kiosks. Representative Olson, Representative Nicholas, had gone out and had some discussions with DFR and also with the proposer of the bill. And maybe you can give us a kind of a highlight of your discussions and thoughts, and will give us some idea of where we maybe should think about going.
Sure.
Only if you wanna.
Yeah, so we met with CoinFlip this morning at 10 o'clock or a little after House floor. And we have discussed their additions to the bill and things like that. One thing I was wondering is, are there any of the, what is the, what are these commonly used for? To which he indicated that construction workers or people of similar type that only work with cash will use this as a way to invest in crypto. He also mentioned that a lot of people will use them to send cryptocurrency to their relatives in other countries because some countries, Bitcoin is actually more stable than the currency of the land. I'd asked them a couple of questions about how the system works. So the way it works is when you deposit money into the system, into the ATM, you actually can't send it to anyone else in theory. What it allows you to do is to send it to your own wallet. And then once it gets into your crypto wallet, then you would have then you can do whatever you wanted with it. And when you go through the process of transferring your cash into the crypto, there's several questions they ask. They will ask, are you being coerced? Is someone telling you to do this? Is there someone on the phone? All these different types of things. You also need to certify that you have to agree that you are not, or that you are using your own crypto wallet. You're not using someone else's. I asked a little bit about the different fees and the limits. We had 1,000, they had 2,000. He said that 2,000 is more in line with, there's some sort of reporting that's done to the federal government, and 1,000 is not reported, whereas 2,000 is. And I'd asked him why the increase in fees. He mentioned it was because they have a lot of additional overhead involved. One being that they're having to staff somebody to, if there's a red flag or something like that, a customer service person that a person at the kiosk could call. The other thing he had mentioned was this concept of analytics. My understanding is what I believe he was referring to is that analytics, you see this like even in the regular banking system, there's certain patterns that they're going to look for in transactions to determine whether it's fraud or not. For example, they'll say, well, where is this coming from? Does the person normally do this kind of a transaction? Those kinds of things. And that they use those analytics to help determine if it's a fraudulent transaction. Probably the most concerning thing is what we had discussed about the receiving wallet. And because of the way crypto works, and I'm no expert on crypto, but what I do know about crypto is that baked into the concept of cryptocurrency is anonymity. And you have this crypto wallet out there. Nobody knows who it belongs to. The only way you access it is usually it's a passphrase with about 12 different words. If you have that passphrase, you can get in, but there's not really any way to tie it to a specific person or a specific group. outside of the analytics. I mean, you know, they could maybe narrow it down using analytics to maybe what country or something like that. Uh, we talked a little bit about, you know, refunds if in the case of fraud. And they indicated that they did not want to have to issue refunds if someone was fraudulent, if they did a fraudulent transaction. But they did say that they would be willing to refund the fees. And he did mention that there was one case where they did actually refund the amount of the currency. That's about all I have. What about you, Herb? Do you have anything?
Tony's covered quite a bit of it. The I didn't know very much about certainly crypto kiosks, and more importantly, probably about cryptocurrency itself. And so it was very helpful for me to understand what Tony was just describing, which is that the system as it currently works provides for complete anonymity for whoever has this digital wallet. And I asked, so what goes wrong in a transaction that ends up being fraudulent? And that was very helpful to me to know also. So essentially, the person who's trying to defraud a customer somehow gets the customer not to enter their own digital wallet, but the digital wallet of someone who's trying to defraud them. You know, I can imagine all sorts of ways that might be.
Social engineering.
Yeah, so that was very interesting because I sort of think about financial institutions, you know, know your customer, blah, blah, blah. And it sounds like the concept of cryptocurrency, as currently constructed, doesn't allow for that, which pose, you know, some real questions for me because I was focused on the consumer protection issues of, well, geez, you know, if someone's defrauding someone, shouldn't that customer be able to get a refund? You know, if you could show it's defrauded. But my sense is that my notion of consumer protection and cryptocurrency's fundamentals are not compatible. So that's my dilemma around. You know, I understand people need to watch out for themselves, but it just it sort of it. I don't know how to deal with consumer protection issues in the context of cryptocurrency, where some of the things that you would normally think of as the responsibility of a financial institution don't seem to be available.
I also had, after they left, I had a conversation with them. They weren't overly thrilled with my idea of relocating the kiosks into banks.
It's like this.
Yeah. I still think it's a good idea.
Like he's here to fight for it.
There's 150 clients that they have annually. My concern is, what are they using these kiosks for? And I realize that, you know, we can't protect against everything, but and I look at where the kiosks are, it's on the main corridor from Springfield, right? And we know we have the drug corridor, and they just so happen to be on that corridor. And I also am concerned about the fraud issue. I asked them if it's possible that they could bring numbers in showing, you know, how many of those 150 people are just taking the money and plopping it into an account for whatever purposes, whether it's fun or investment. And if that's the case, I would feel a lot more better about it. But if we're talking about, you know, the kiosks are specifically being used for sending money out of our country, out of our state, for drugs or for any type of, you know, fraudulent activity, I'm back to where I originally was, which is regulate them into the banks.
One more, we met with Aaron. And I forget THE's name. And so I'm not going to say what they said, but I'll say that I came away from the meeting thinking that there's very little risk of any legal action. So that I was uncertain about that before, and I came away, confident that it wasn't a meaningful risk.
I know Maria sent the email. There was an NCSL news piece that came out. States are really starting to take notice of these issues with these kiosks, and I think New Jersey is one state that's thinking in the same realm that we are, is to just ban them. So if you have a chance between now and 3:45, just kind of look at that NCSL piece. It was pretty interesting.
Another, and I don't know what the implications are for taxes on this. I mean, they are purchasing, even though it's an electronic tangible product. I mean, it's not real. No matter what we say to ourselves, it's a cryptocurrency is not real. But I do wonder if it's possible to tax it. And if you purchase it, it's buying something, and whether or not it's taxable. I mean, everything's taxable. We live in Vermont.
I mean, I can tell you it is, checked out.
So that, yes, I know, but if we're talking about, because they're not financial, they're just, it's like playing craps, right? And that's what it is, because it's not really a financial product. It's as I told them, beanie babies from like the late 90s. I'm wrong.
So they are worth something.
Right. It's something, they're worth something now. I mean, I have Coinbase, and I remember when it was, and I was just playing with it, and I remember when it was up to 600. It's now down to 347, and it's fun, but not sold.
Okay, why don't we ask Chris to sit down with us and just to talk about the two studies that we have in 137?
Sure.
To save you some time you can leave the building earlier, and wait for us.
I don't think I dare leave this building early. You might find crypto kiosks in your bags. I'm watching you. You are consistent with your thoughts. Yeah. Chris D'Elia, President of Vermont Bankers Association, specifically on H137. I think there's three things in there, the two studies, and then you add language in there on discount points as being eligible. So that's fine. We've spoken with the Department of Financial Regulation on that. As far as the studies go, no problem on the issue regarding bank holds on transactions. That's great. We'll work with Aaron, whose plate got a lot bigger, or is going to, and happy to support that. And I greatly appreciate Representative Granning's working on the coerced debt bill, hearing from all of the interested parties, and this going to a summer study committee. I think that there's enough areas of differences between the interested parties right now, each representing their constituents in a responsible way, that I'm very appreciative of the fact that we will have more time to try and come up with a solution that works for all of the parties involved. So thank you very much, and I support that as well. So happy to answer any questions.
Chris? And no crypto kiosks in the banks. Maybe if they're made of Lego and not plugged in or something. We could do it.
We dispense Beanie Babies.
Or baseball cards or, yeah.
I feel like if there's such a desire to have them here, they should have the guardrails for safety that banks do. And
Couldn't agree more. And that's where I think you have a very strong Department of Financial Regulation that could, either with your direction or on their own, come up with the appropriate rules and regulations that would govern these entities and kiosks in the market. We only disagree on where they should be located.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, thank you very much.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Charlie Glisserman, Policy Director at the Vermont Network Against Domestic and Sexual Violence. This is my first time in this committee, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to speak with you all about the study for victims of coarse debt in H137. For a bit of background, we are the state's leading voice on domestic and sexual violence issues. Our members are 15 independent nonprofits that offer direct services to survivors of violence and their families, as well as prevention programming in their communities. And together they serve every town in the state. So through our member organizations, we hear accounts of survivors of domestic violence whose lives are forever changed by economic abuse like coerced debt. Coerced debt occurs when a person utilizes coercive control, threats, or identity theft to incur debt in the name of an individual without their consent. And the debt and resulting poor credit score can have long-term consequences for survivors, creating barriers to education, housing, and employment opportunities. Just one example, we heard of a survivor in Vermont who I spoke with a couple months ago, who was living in unsafe housing conditions because they could not afford both needed home repairs and payments on coerced debt from an abusive relationship they left over a decade before. It is important to note that coerced debt can also impact other vulnerable populations, such as older adults, foster youth, or victims of human trafficking, in addition to gender-based violence. So states from Texas to Connecticut have passed financial protections to provide relief to victims of coerced debt. And in the fall, we reached out to Representative Edie Granning on similar legislation in Vermont to create a process for survivors to request creditors cease collecting on coerced debt and remove coerced debt from their credit reports. And this legislation was based on model language from the National Consumer Law Center. And we are very grateful to Representative Granning for her work on this issue. The study included in Section 20 will be an important step forward towards implementing financial protections for victims of coerced debt, and we really look forward to working with the Department of Financial Regulation, the Bankers Association, and other stakeholders in the off session and revisiting this important issue next year. I'd be happy to answer any questions. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you all today.
One thing I mentioned to Edie, I mentioned to Chris as well, is someone that you know, as far as your credit ratings, when you're having those discussions, when that happens, maybe it's the perpetrator that's credit rating gets dinged up. It might help stop some of this. I think that's maybe something that it could be looked at, whether or not could do it or not, I don't know, but it seems as though if they're coercing someone into doing something, then maybe credit rating and not the person get coerced into doing it.
we have a summer study to examine important questions like that one. I appreciate it.
And you're aware of the unemployment benefits that are available to people that are in domestic violence?
Yes. Yes, we are very grateful for that. And our member programs, have all of the information to connect survivors with the support that they need, including those.
Just every time we have the opportunity to bring that up, just want to make sure that people know that that's available there.
Thank you so much.
Any other questions, Charlie?
I just want to thank Charlie and Chris and others who came to the table, because there are issues that everybody has concerns about, and we're ultimately talking about a vulnerable population that we need to figure out how to protect, and understanding that we don't have the time to do it in the next couple of weeks, but we can do it thoughtfully in the future. I think it's great that everybody's willing to come to the table to do that. So I'm grateful to all of you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right on trying. Good afternoon.
Thanks
for joining.
Thanks for having me today. I should have been here a little earlier to set up my Zoom, but I can start while I figure that out. So it's great to see everyone. Thank you for inviting me to talk about our Arts Council budget today. I know I was here a few weeks ago, which was great. So to give you an overview of the Arts Council, so I won't go too deep into those details. I'll just say, I'm Susan Evans McClure. I'm the Executive Director of the Vermont Arts Council. I will just say that we are, my apologies, just give me a sec here.
You talk and type it.
I think I can, yep. Also, my talking is more important than my pictures, I think.
How you feeling about the federal situation, or is that not
Oh.
you want to talk
Oh,
about?
that's on the list, don't worry.
Your blood pressure up or anything.
So I'll just say that the Arts Council is the state's arts agency. We're the state affiliate of the National Endowment for the Arts. Our mission is to cultivate and advance the arts and creativity throughout Vermont. We're working to build a state where all artists thrive, where creativity is at the heart of our communities, and where everyone has access to the arts in their lives and education. So the last time I was here, you heard me talk all about our grant programs, about the community development work we do through the arts, our public art programs, our arts education programs. I shared a bit about their flood and emergency relief work that we've been doing through the past few years as well. And I know you're tight on time today, so I will just say again that a few key facts about our role in Vermont's economy. Anna Grace, would you mind just emailing me the link again to get into the Zoom? Thank you. I'll just share a few key facts about Vermont's creative economy. The creative sector, which is all of the arts and creativity related industries in our state. So that's everything from museums, artists, libraries, historical societies, architecture firms, designers, graphic designers. It's a big, broad umbrella. Altogether, they produce about $1.2 billion of the state's GSP. And not only do the members of the creative sector create that industry themselves, there's also a big tourism and spending component associated with it. So through some other research and data put together by Americans for the Arts, we know that attendees to live events locals spend about $30 on top of the price of their ticket every time they buy a ticket, and non-locals spend about $52 on top of the price of their ticket every time they buy a ticket. And those are real dollars that are invested into our local economies. The great thing about the arts and creativity is that not only are the arts and creativity something that brings us joy, connects us with our neighbors and our communities, but they also have a real immediate return on the investment that we put in them for our local economies. So having those two things exist together makes us a pretty special way to, it's going to be audioed, pretty special way to participate in our local economies. One thing that we did last year, then forgive me if you've heard me say this before, I'm going to share it because I do think it's really important, is that we've really been leaning into business training for artists. We're hearing from artists that they really don't have the skills, and I can speak for myself as someone who has an undergraduate degree in theater and a master's in arts education. I never learned a lick of business training in my life. So I have since learned those skills on the job, but we're hearing from people that that's a really something they need. Artists are small businesses. So this year we partnered with USDA Rural Development to fund access to a program called Assets for Artists. That's a free virtual training program designed specifically for artists on kind of business basics. So everything from marketing, website development, how to incorporate your business. And we're hearing that from folks that those have been incredibly meaningful trainings, and we're looking to lean more into that into the future. We know that even though we do a lot of direct grant funding across the state, that our services will never reach every single artist in the state. And instead, we want to focus on how to support artists and organizations to do their best work beyond our capacity to support them with grants. So, okay. Let me talk briefly about our budget and some of the questions you probably have about federal funding. So we are an independent nonprofit, and in fact, we're the only independent nonprofit state arts agency in the entire country. There's 56 state and territorial arts agencies. They're funded by the National Endowment for the Arts and their state governments. In 1965, when the Vermont Arts Council was created in statute, it was decided that it would operate as an independent nonprofit, very Vermont of us. So we do that to this day, which means that our funding is about 45% state funding, 45% federal funding, and the rest comes from private donations. We're really specific about our private fundraising because we know that there are many arts organizations across the state who are also raising private dollars in a limited market for that. So we never want to be in competition with private donations. So anyone who comes to me, if anybody ever says, I'm thinking about donating to my local arts organization or the Arts Council, we always put them to their local arts organization. Where we have had some amazing growth in our ability to fundraise and direct that towards grant making has been with some private donors who want to fund directly to artists, but they don't have the capacity to do it. So we've been able to basically add their resources to our pot of federal and state money to increase the amount that we're able to give out. Which does mean that in FY24, we awarded just over $3.2 million to every county in the state. And that's really important to us. We know that it's important for these dollars to get everywhere. All right. Not a moment too late. You don't need the pictures anymore now, so. Great. So what I will do is skip to the good stuff. So how our budget works at the Arts Council is that we receive a notification from the National Endowment for the Arts about how much money they are going to give us as a state arts agency, and that requires a dollar for dollar state match for those federal dollars. We are only awarded as much as the state gives us. So every dollar that the state doesn't match, it's actually twice as much money that is lost for folks in Vermont. As you maybe have noticed and talked about, there's a lot up in the air about federal funding and the federal budget. I'll just take a moment to kind of explain what we're seeing too and how this federal funding crisis is really impacting the arts and culture sector and the Arts Council. It's kind of breaking out into three areas. The first are arts organizations who have federal grants that are underway right now, mostly reimbursing grants, which means they spend the money first, right? They have to ask the federal government for that money back. We are in that category. Our funding, we're awarded that funding, but then we have to spend it and ask for a reimbursement. I will say that after the federal funding freeze moment, we were able to recoup all of our funding. We're up to date. We have been advised by partners to try to stay on top of that as much as possible. We used to reimburse kind of every 3 or 4 months. Now we're doing it every month and requesting a 1-month advance. And that's what we've been advised by kind of federal partners across the country. That's what we're telling other organizations who have grants right now as well. We have been informed, right, that federal funding freeze is not allowed to happen. But what we're actually seeing is kind of more of a federal funding chill. Like some of the agencies have gone, the funds are going, but it's slower than it usually is. That's the first category. The second are arts organizations who had grants awarded to them in the end of 2025 to start in 2026. They have signed grant agreements. They are ready to move forward, but they are not able to access those funds. We are hearing from them is basically like the website where you go to get the money. Those grants just aren't showing up on that website, and they're not getting any clear information about, do they have this money? Do they not have this money? What's going to happen? And then, of course, the big third bucket that we're all talking about is the federal budget. What comes next? Any future funding around this? We are preparing for multiple scenarios, as many people and agencies are, right? The first Trump administration, although the administration in their budget every year zeroed out funding for the National Endowment for the Arts, the National Endowment for the Humanities, Congress put it back in. Funding was stable throughout the first Trump administration. We are hoping that is still the case, that funding remains stable. I believe that the national arts advocates have continued to make a really strong case for both the community and economic value of investing in arts across the country. That what you're really investing in when you put federal dollars towards the arts is building our local economies. It's having kids have access to the arts in schools. It's community development projects, like a lot of the ones we fund around the state, everything from, the ice fishing programs and the ice fishing shanties in Brattleboro to community pop-ups all over the place. And not to mention our anchor arts organizations. So that being said, I feel like we've made a strong federal case for the validity and stability of this funding, and we're hoping that that continues. We do not know, but the numbers that we're sharing are based on what we were told, 5-6 weeks ago when things felt different. So what we were advised was that the total amount that we would be receiving is $1,071,800 is their estimate. We don't have a final number on that. We'll definitely have it by, I would say definitely. I can't say anything definite about federal funding right now. Definitely, usually in past years, we've had that agreement in hand by the middle of April. I'm speaking with our federal partners this week to try to get more information on that. The reality is they don't know either. And I trust that they are giving us as much information as they have.
Is that dependent on there being a federal budget passed as opposed to continuing resolution they're under now? Is that a factor?
So it's a great question. What they actually are doing money that's 1 year back. So it's money that's already been appropriated, and then they're funding it. They're giving it out the year after. So it's continuing as long as the government is open, They will continue doing it.
Gotcha.
Theoretically, they've already had their meeting at the National Endowment for the Arts to determine this funding. But anyway, so we were in the governor's budget for $1,003,000 this year. And based on what we had previously been told, we're anticipating that our federal award will be $1,071,000. So that is the total that we're requesting. I will be very transparent with everyone, as we have been in years past, that as soon as we know, we will share it. It's not, our intent is not to highball and then not need that federal match. We understand there is a tight budget here too. I will say that if for some reason there is a dramatic change in federal funding that results in much lower funding for the states, we will be requesting the amount that's currently in the governor's budget, because we always really need the state funding. And if there is a scenario in which we receive less federal funding, it'll be even more vital that we have state funding to continue stable for us to continue to do the work that we do across the state.
Did you get the $1,072,000 number before the governor presented the budget?
We did, yes. And we shared that number with the governor's office when they were developing the budget, and they gave us a 3% increase over last year.
The governor's recommended budget is 68,737 less than the one.
Yes, sorry, I should have included that number up there. It's not a secret. It's $1,003,063.
You're looking for 1.1. $1,140,537.
1.1 million. I would say one, we could round up to 1.1. It's 1,071,800.
Requesting an increase?
Yes, the increase is about 70,000 over
Over what you got
Yeah.
last year. I got you.
Over
I
the
thought,
governor.
over what's in the governor's recommend.
oh, so you're looking at 1.368,737.
Sorry that I was confusing about this. The total amount that we are requesting is the 1,071,000.
Okay, and the budget.
It's
Governors has
1,000,003.
1.3.
1,003,000, but yeah,
1,003,000.
yes.
Okay, so that's where I was getting.
I should have put that.
How much more?
than you want.
Okay. So you.
Yeah, what if it's super less than the
So you're
governor?
looking for 68. You want to match,
Yes,
you need to match the
Mhm.
NEA
Yeah.
if that's what you get.
and that's what we
And
got.
that's, we were at the same place last year.
Yep, and it's not uncommon for us to be,
Right.
we had a little more information last year because there was just a little more clarity. I'm hoping to get more. And what we've done previously is, give what we think is going to happen. And that's that 1,071,000 number is what we think. And then as we get more details, we've previously worked with Senate appropriations to just kind of true it up in the end of April when we have that number.
What happens if you don't get the full amount? Does that mean the Fed cuts you back to what the state gives you?
Yes, then we won't get the full.
Have that match.
Yes.
Okay. John, update.
Is there an opportunity? Is there some period of time in which you can add to that state amount, or is it just that the formula is state amount equals federal amount?
Yes, and it has to come from the general fund. It's very specifically
all right.
like we
Okay,
cannot
that's helpful.
fundraise the gap. We can't, and that's different from other agencies. So the National Endowment for the Humanities agreements are different. So they can raise their match privately, but the arts organizations can't. And typically, I think that's more typical for other state arts agencies because they're all part of state, they're officially part of state
Yeah.
government. We're considered a quasi-state agency, but every other 55 state and territorial arts agency, just the rest of their funding is state funding. So. There's two other projects that we are also requesting this year. And the first, those of you who were in these chairs last year have heard about before, is the Film and Creative Media Workforce Development Initiative. So in 2022, the legislature convened the Vermont Film and Media Industry Task Force. And thank you to this committee for really being forward thinking about that and trying to understand what is the best way for our state to support our film economy. The task force submitted a report in January of 2023. And what the task force really said, I love the sentence, is that Vermont's film industry requires a uniquely Vermont-based approach. There are many other states that provide tax incentives for film and media production. That is not something that Vermont has the capacity, interest, structure to do. But what we can do is do something small that incentivizes people who are already working here, who want to work here, or are trained here to do more of their work here. We know that creative media and film are a growing industry in our state. And in addition to the film giant productions that you may think of when you think of film, the reality of digital media is that it's part of our daily lives. It's part of the needs of our businesses. Every small business across the state needs access to digital services now for their website, for their Instagram, for marketing tools. You all need to have videos. And we also know that our higher ed institutions from Champlain College, Middlebury, Bennington have some amazing film and media production departments that are training people, in addition to many of our CTE programs that have great digital media production programs as well. So we know that there is the talent here. We know that there's the interest here, but often there's just a gap to finding out, how do you stay here? What can you do? So what we are proposing is a $120,000 investment that would get us an online database of film and creative media assets and opportunities. That would be similar to what every other state, almost every other state, not every single state, but the majority of states has. Whoops. And it would allow us to make it just a little, I want to use the metaphor of pushing someone off a hill, but that's probably not the best one to do. But we want to like get that ball rolling, right? If you're already working here, yeah, that's the metaphor. Maybe it's a film dolly that goes down there. But so we want people to know where they can access the assets they need, who is working, who is available to be hired. We also know that we need a contact person for film and media production in Vermont. If you want to work in another state, if you want to film in another state, there's a film office and you call, someone answers the phone or their email or whatever, and they put you in touch. They might not know every single thing in the whole state, but they're able to kind of grease the wheels a little and put you in touch with the folks who you do need to talk to in order to get things done. We're also having great conversations with VAN, Vermont Access Network. Vermont Access Network has really built up their capacity across the state to have equipment that's available for rent for people to use. So we're looking to partner with them to make sure their resources are part of this database as well. And we've been talking with the state's new workforce development office to really coordinate these efforts together to make sure that anything that we're offering through this is coordinated as part of all of the state's workforce development programs. The reality is we know our state will, we are actually centrally located between some major tax incentive states, Massachusetts, New York, Quebec, which is not a state, it is another country, but they have great production incentives there too. But we do know that we want to incentivize people to work here and to stay here. And we think that this is a really modest way to do that. It is going to be included in the Senate economic development bill that the Senate committee is working on. So we are happy to talk more about that when you see that bill in just a few short weeks coming over here.
What was the number for that? Sorry.
No, if it has a number.
No, I'm.
Oh, 120. Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, the number of the bill. That would be impressive though.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, it's S22. $120,000 is what we're asking for. And that would be split between the cost of having this database, kind of paying into the database, setting it up, the cost for having a person to not a full-time, that is not a full-time job. It will be very clear. It's a part-time job. And we'd be partnering with Vermont Production Collective on this. And Vermont Production Collective is really the experts. They're an organization of film and media professionals in the state right now. To be honest with you, they're the ones that get these questions and they often are like, oh, no. So they're going to be a real resource for us to understand what the needs of the sector are.
Something that I recall during the SBTAE days, Small Business Technical Assistance Exchange, and the precursor to that, Rev to Restart Vermont Technical Assistance, was a surprising amount of very small production companies, digital content creators. Have those resources been tapped as a that initial, like, oh, here's a lot of them, now we have a sense of the 4 dozen or so in, south of Route 4, something like that? Have you engaged with people who had those touch points?
That's a great idea. I don't think we've considered kind of tying into that existing network, but those are the exact businesses that we're thinking about for this. And that's a great, having worked on that in the past, that's a great reminder that those exist and those lists are already there. And actually we find the great thing about that program, which I am looking around as if people know about it because it did anyway. So what did REVTA stand for?
Restart Vermont Technical Assistance.
Yes. So the idea with this was it was a program that would connect small businesses and nonprofits with Vermont-based businesses to provide technical assistance for their small businesses. A lot of that came through as website development, digital services. There was some strategic planning. And often what we heard was that Vermont-based nonprofits need those services and they don't know who to go to for those either. So the great thing about the REVTA program was that it was like a handhold between them. So there are actually I didn't think about that, but this is so true. There's a lot of similarities there. Interestingly, with that program, I feel like the first round of it, at least when nonprofits were eligible, I spent a lot of time talking to nonprofits saying, this is a great opportunity for you to connect. And it was funded, of course, which this would not be paying for those services, but it's just connecting them. I'm constantly amazed by how much happens in Vermont and honestly, how much support there is for businesses in Vermont. But we often hear that the missing piece is that communications central point of contact where we're able to explain to people what's happening. And that's an important role that an important but intangible role that agencies like the Arts Council play are just being that central point of contact, saying, oh yeah, you need this service, here's where you find out more about that. You need help with a loan, here's the 3 people that you can go to. We do a lot of that support for our arts and creative businesses right now too.
Susan, on that 120,000, to help stand this up? What, is that an ongoing every year need?
So the first year would be a little more to get the website set up. We have to kind of buy into the web service and we have to get all of the there's going to be a big push to get the data on there to begin with. So that will be a little more of an upfront cost. There will be an annual cost associated with it because you're still going to need that person power who is able to answer the questions and do that. We also are asking for a little bit more in the first year because I think it's really important if we're going to do this to set up a structure where we can measure its impact right away. So being able to have some more staff time to set up that infrastructure for measuring, like, how are you going to measure if this is successful? Is it just the number of people you have on the website? Maybe I'd like to go a little further than that to see if people are using those services, to talk to both digital media companies and the people using the services to see if this is filling the need so that we can, I think what we saw through the film study that happened a couple of years ago, which looked back at the previous 2 film commissions, both of which were closed, was that they weren't making financial sense. And the way a lot of film commissions are set up in other states, studies have shown does not make financial sense. So what we are really trying to do is set up something that does work for Vermont and works within our scale, and we're able to measure its effectiveness. So all of that long-winded way is to say the first year is more, it will be less in future. There will be a cost in future years to pay for that associated part-time staff person, but it'll be less than the first setup year.
What happens if it's funded, gets set up, and then funding stops?
We would hope that doesn't happen. The question with that is, do we have enough? That could be something that we look into in the first year, is some sort of sustainability for it. Right now, would be a free service, right? Because the state values this as part of its economic development efforts and wants to invest funding in that. I think there's a case to be made that maybe you could look for sponsorship, or, if we have it's kind of a chicken egg, right? Like if we have the data to prove its effectiveness, potentially we go out and say, even to the industry, hey, can you buy a membership to this? Do you want to buy into this service to help support it because we can show that return? It's hard to start like that because you don't have that proven return right now, even though we've heard from people that there will be, but you really want to do it and see. So we would hope that there would be a continued investment in it because the state sees the value in it. Ideally, right, what we're able to do at the end of the first few years is bring back numbers where we say, okay, you've put in 120,000 the first year, 80,000 the next year, and here's the economic impact of that to really show that that investment is paying off for the state, because that's what we want to be doing with this funding.
Have you pitched this to the Agency of Commerce?
We've talked to them about this. They have been really specific with us that they don't do industry specific focused work. The film commissions for the past 2 iterations previously in Vermont were at the Agency of Commerce. Those there were a lot of successes that they did have. The state chose way before my time here, the state chose not to continue them. And I think the Agency of Commerce really sees that as being, they don't do industry specific, they do generalized work. So they felt it wasn't a good fit.
Is there a creative media membership trade organization in Vermont?
There is. So the closest, and it's not a paid membership organization, is Vermont Production Collective, who we're partnering with on this right now. It's not a paid membership as far as right now. And I don't think they have plans for it to be. There are, I think the way we're looking at this is more than film, right? It's film and it's the digital, associated digital services that go along with video content and creative media. So it's a little broader than any of the more traditional trade associations kind of thing. I will mention one more thing. I know I'm close on time. Is the Better Places program. So Better Places is a community matching grant program that empowers Vermonters to create inclusive and vibrant public spaces that serve Vermont's designated downtowns and village centers through that program at ACCD. So the program is led by Vermont Department of Housing and Community Development. The Arts Council was one of the first partners on the program. They also work with Vermont Community Foundation. Originally, the program was created with an investment of ARPA funds, and what it does is support community-led projects that create, revitalize, or activate public spaces to bring people together. The way the program is set up is that it requires a 33% crowd-funded match. So you receive state funds, and then the community has to crowdfund the remainder of those funds. Grants are anything from $5,000 to $40,000. And they funded, we are a partner on this program. It's not run through the Arts Council, but we are a partner and in support of it. They funded so far 52 projects statewide, everything from free outdoor music and community events, a skate park, some community redevelopment work, mosaics in Brattleboro, Town Hall Theater's Performance Plaza in Middlebury, and many of you have seen right here in Montpelier, the bridge illumination project. So as you're driving home late at night from your long days at the State House, you can think of the ACCD program Better Places that funded that. Why we are excited about this is because these projects really align with the Vermont Arts Council's goals of incentivizing creative placemaking. And when I say creative placemaking, the idea is behind creative placemaking is it's how you turn a space that exists into a place you want to go through the arts. And both nationally and locally, creative placemaking has been a really effective tool in community and economic development efforts. We've done this through a lot of our grant funding programs. We've been happy to partner with Better Places on this. I know it's something that was not included in the governor's budget, but a program that does exist at DHCD right now that they would welcome funding to continue doing. And we're a strong supporter of that effort as well. We really support any state effort that's designed to invest funds in creative placemaking because we know that benefits our communities in all of the ways that we need our communities to be strong, both our social connections, our economic vibrancy, the tourism that draws people there. This program really is one of the ones that brings all of that together.
Yeah. Can't remember the project you did in Berry City. Do you remember?
Doing this because it was a Capstone Community Action Mural.
Oh, yes. Okay.
That wasn't a Better Places project, actually. That was the Arts Council did that as I think that was an animating infrastructure grant. It might have been an arts project grant.
I think Tracy Lewis did one, and but that's okay. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, there was one too. I think there might have been multiple projects in Barry,
Yeah.
but yes, it's been really fun to work. We've loved working in Barry. It's a great community.
Thank you.
Susan, thank you. You
Thank
did a
you.
great job, right on time.
Oh, thank you. Thanks for having me. And for slotting me into your busy day.
No,
We're in a
appreciate it.
broad range of topics today. So. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Maria, if you'd like to go over what we have so far.
Maria Royal with Legislative Council. And so what is posted as promised is draft 1.4. It's strike all amendment to H 137. And essentially this is what you saw this morning, minus the 2 Medigap provisions, which have been removed completely. All of the highlighting has been removed and it has been edited. So, with the exception of the one typo, should look identical.
Okay.
And
Just trying to follow the document, 1.4, 1.4.
yes,
So I think before we actually take a vote, I think one standing possible piece would be crypto kiosks that we to work on. We had a bit of a discussion gonna go. Guess I want to know where the committee stands on kiosks. What is your pleasure, what you want to do?
I'll start it off. I want to know how they're being used in the state of Vermont. Uh, Otherwise, absent that information, I'm not thrilled with them, as everybody knows where I stand on it.
Yeah, I mean, kind of in the same boat. I haven't really seen any compelling reason for having them. So I think I would support really strongly regulating them, or I'd also support just banning them.
Thoughts?
Everybody speak as one. I'll get your thoughts. But Tony, you go ahead. I mean, Tony was kind of leading a little group, so I that, and I don't think you've shared your thoughts with everybody. Maybe we have.
Am I answering?
I mean, I'm kind of with Abby. You know, I think there's a practical aspect of this. You know, I've seen through this three possible scenarios: either kick it down the road, or we take the additional time we need to add additional regulation, or we ban it outright. Those are the only three avenues. You know, those are the three ways we can deal with this. You know, it's a tough thing because, like I said, much as I dislike the fact that there's no way that you can really trace where the money goes, that's just baked into crypto. And I don't see that ever changing because I mean that was the foundation of crypto, was the ability to do anonymous transactions. And there's certainly a practical case for that. You know, we have a lot of people who are very strong on their privacy, and they don't want to have anything to do with, you know, that they're afraid that the government's watching them all the time and all that kind of stuff. But frankly, I don't see those people using a crypto ATM machine. You know, they're going to pay cash and they're not going to go anywhere else. As for the rest of it, you know, in my experience, I'm in IT. The only time I've ever seen anything like this is in fraud. I'm just being totally honest. You know, I have dealt with countless people having to do this. I appreciate what they're trying to do, but social engineering is very powerful and people don't read stuff. You can sit there until you're blue in the face and say, I certify that this is my crypto wallet. But if there's someone on the other side of the phone telling them you're about to go to prison unless you do exactly what I say, they're going to click whatever they need to get to end their crisis, because those fraudsters are putting them under so much stress. They just want to get it over with. They will sign anything. They will check any box. They just want it to go away.
Hi, everybody. Sorry I can't be there with you. I also just kind of want to echo what Tony and Abby are saying. I also agree that either to ban them outright or just to have some good heavy regulation on it. To Tony's point, cash exists for folks that want to do more private transactions. And I'm also again like not seeing much of a purpose other than kind of nefarious reasons. And it doesn't ban folks access to cryptocurrency outright. So they're still going to be able to get it in some regard or another.
Yeah, so it's a dilemma I have is I'm seeing it from a consumer protection standpoint, and the the strongest kind of consumer protection that I would see is the kind of thing that you would normally do if you're a financial institution, you know your customer. And if something goes wrong and something fraudulent happens, the financial institution is going to refund. It's going to be obligated to refund for that fraudulent transaction. The problem, as I see it with crypto, is that, like Tony said, the basis of the concept is, anonymity of it, which poses, I think, a little difficulty in terms of imposing know yourself kind of standard and the kind of refund, the scope, I guess, and breadth of the refund that I would normally think would be appropriate seems to be kind of incompatible with the concept of this stuff. But that's my concern. Bottom line, I guess, unless I thought the consumer protections are necessary, it's not an activity that I think we should be sanctioned. And might change, at some point. Right now, that's what.
It seems difficult to justify working to support an industry that appears to be attempting to not necessarily be something that is easily protected, or it provides you it's able to evade protections. My anxiety about having extremely strong protections within Vermont is that many of us live very close to not Vermont. And my worry is that we may not have a way to protect people who wish to travel across state lines. And we may give people who live nearby those opportunities an incentive to do. I don't think that's a strong enough reason. Relax here, but it's something that I wish I had a better solution for.
I have to admit, I'm hesitant at any time to throw something out or throw the baby out with the bathwater when I haven't even had a chance yet to meet the little rascal. And I did not know that these things even exist till I sat at this table. Now, that being said, part of the reason for that is that the people I know who do use cryptocurrency and all that use other means and have all the access they need, and they have never even mentioned the existence of cryptocurrency kiosks. So we wouldn't be denying necessarily, obviously not a significant number of people, and there would, in fact, as Jonathan points out, be options just over the state line if they really need to exercise that in order to ship a more stable currency home or whatever the situation was that you guys described from what you learned this afternoon. I have to say I don't see a need to entertain them here.
Would still like to know the information about, the transactions themselves. Just because of my morbid curiosity on the issue. As I stated, if people are purchasing crypto and it's staying in their account for a year, more than likely it's not nefarious in any means. But
yes, the report that we received address what was occurring prior to the 94% reduction in their presence in the state. I'm trying to recall if I could, just to your point, Michael, like what was the status quo prior to the status quo? We're down to just 3.
Deputy commissioners on Zoom. Hi, Aaron. Thanks for joining us.
No problem. No problem. So I was there a direct question for me right there? I didn't quite catch it.
So, Deputy Commissioner, is there a way to characterize the activities, the use patterns in Vermont prior to the moratorium taking effect?
I wouldn't know people's motivations for using machines. I think we can just show you the absolute reduction in the volume of activities that occurred pre and post moratorium. And that's what we put in the report.
So I recall some of the report, including language from a law enforcement officer in California somewhere who was describing some of the work that they'd done to what was happening with it. And there was elements of human trafficking, et cetera, and other social vices that were reduced significantly, but it wasn't as if that same sort of analysis took place with Vermont cryptocurrency kiosk activity, I guess.
No, that we did not have information on that to put in the report.
Aaron, what triggered us to even do a moratorium? Oftentimes I think most people, unless there's a problem, they just kind of let it ride. Is there an event? Was there something that happened that caused us to say, hey, we need to look at this?
So the legislative history was we came to the committee last year and requested updates to our crypto kiosk bill. We wanted to implement the transaction per day limit and also a fee cap. And then the committee developed the moratorium component and added that to the bill.
So you were just kind of doing a little house cleaning when you
we were concerned about reports of potential fraud, and we took those two features from other states that had acted on that. But I was just pointing out that the moratorium wasn't DFR's idea, though we've been enforcing it since it became law.
But you brought it to our attention because of your concerns for fraud.
That's correct.
Thank you.
If I remember right, this committee did something a little different when the moratorium went on in the Senate. Trying to remember the background, but I almost think, didn't we put a ban on them, and the Senate decided that they would do a moratorium to get that report?
I don't remember that. I think there might have been a 2-year moratorium and it got whittled down to 1 year as well. I think that was the Attorney General's comment letter as well.
Maybe Heather,
Heather Schulweiss and Associates here with CoinFlip. Larry Lipka is here to answer questions. Yes, originally it was a 2-year moratorium, and Senator Cummings' committee said, let's just do 1 and we can kick it down the road again if we need to. A lot of the questions that are being asked, Larry is literally pulled his car over on the side of the road, ran into a building so he could answer them for you. He was here all morning and we didn't know you were taking this up this afternoon.
But we haven't planned on it, but
Yeah.
now we're planning on moving this bill. If we're gonna move it, if we're gonna include something on crypto, I think this is the vehicle to do it in. Or it can be done on the Senate side too.
Yeah, there was a few questions that Representative Booton and Olson asked that we were going to get them information on, so we haven't even got to that part yet.
Larry, you want to weigh in?
Yes. So, I think I just want to point out that, there have been, when the department testified at the first hearing about 1.5 years ago, the testimony was that there was no reports of any scam activity in Vermont related to kiosks. So I was very surprised that we were talking about a moratorium based on things that had not happened, right? Based on feelings and people's sort of dislike of crypto. So I'm not saying that scams don't happen. What I'm saying is that the Vermont system is working to keep bad actors out of the state. The money transmitter licensing requirement is very strong, and the department has to actually give permission for each new kiosk. This was before the moratorium, obviously, with a decal, and that process could take up to 1 year to get a new kiosk approved. So because of that strong basis, there have not been the same scams happening in Vermont as in other states where there is not the same regulation in place. What we're seeking with the bill here is to improve upon what's already existing, to require operators to do what CoinFlip is already doing to protect consumers. That's, warnings and disclosures, blockchain analytics, And I can talk about what that is a little bit later as well, and including, customer service, live customer service, having a chief compliance officer that doesn't own the company. So this is sort of stuff that any good operator should be doing. And I'm hearing a lot of people talking about, crime and criminal activity happening at the kiosks. I would ask, where's the evidence of that? Because our evidence is that these are legitimate transactions. We monitor them through, blockchain analytics and our compliance monitoring software. And there is not the evidence of that. I've heard people say that, people will use this for drugs or drug dealers will use this to launder money. But, they're not a good way to do criminal activity because you have to go to a store that's public where there are people watching you. And each time you do a transaction, a photograph is taken of you. And if you want to transact, you have to give your name, your date of birth, and your cell phone number at a minimum. And when you buy $960 or more, you have to give a copy of your ID, and we do biometrics on you. You have to use a mobile application and you take a picture of your face. So, we're like a traditional financial services system where we're doing that KYC process on our customers. So we know who our customers are. And if there was something suspicious happening with those transactions, if the transaction's over $2,000, we'll submit a suspicious activity report. So I understand that the people in this room may not understand why someone would use a kiosk. And frankly, I don't use our kiosks. I use our order desk, or I would use an exchange. But I am someone who is connected to the financial services system, and I trust the financial services system. Some of our customers don't trust an exchange to have their bank account information or their credit card information because of what happened with FTX and what happens with fraud or what happens with hacking. Some people don't want to use a mobile application, just like some people still write physical checks and still go to their bank branches. We could make the same argument that why do we even have bank branches when someone can use online banking or they can use their mobile application? There are people out there that want the physical touch of a kiosk because it makes them more comfortable. And that's paired with 24-hour-a-day customer service. So if something happens, you'll get assistance immediately from us within a minute. Whereas if something happens with your Coinbase account or your Coinbase transaction, you submit a ticket and you'll be lucky to get a response in a number of days. And it won't be a phone call. It will be an email, and maybe they'll have fixed your problem. So, it's everyday people that are using our kiosks. We have 150 customers in Vermont. The department had said there was no scam activity at the time. And obviously transactions have gone down in the state because there's only 3 kiosks left and they're ours. So, we're here to make a point that we're a legitimate business. We think that you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater just because there have been fraud in other states when we have solutions to prevent that from happening in Vermont. And that's what's in this bill. And, people will still find a way to buy crypto with cash, and that could be peer-to-peer transactions where they meet someone online and then go to a parking lot and exchange a bag of cash for crypto. Or they'll go to a neighboring state like New Hampshire that does not have a money transmitter licensing requirement for kiosk operators. We've applied for one, we want one, but they won't give it to us. But there are nefarious operators out there that are not doing the same thing as CoinFlip. So, what I'm pressuring here is that, there are good actors in this industry. That's why I'm here testifying. That's why I want to answer questions. And that's why, whatever information you want, I'll get to you. But an outright ban of an industry seems like an overreach when there is not evidence that anyone here today is testifying about of anything bad that is happening in Vermont from the kiosks right now.
Yeah, and I, for myself, I don't mean to suggest that you folks are in any way bad actors, Larry. I hope you don't take that away. The concern I had was the transactions ability to enable fraud, folks who are scamming people to get away with that kind of thing. And I think there is some evidence from the Deputy Commissioner's report that fraud it happens. How much, who knows? Or at least I didn't get a real sense of how much. But because fraud happens, that's my sense of why, from a consumer protection standpoint, I'd like to see the ability for refunds, a strong refund protection. And that's why I bump up into the problem of, and again, I'm not implying anything nefarious, but if you don't really know who that actual digital wallet is, you really don't have the ability to know that someone's committing fraud. So it's how do you get a strong refund policy in that circumstance? I'd be a lot more happier if there was a strong refund provision in there. But it just seemed to me that the concept of refund and the concept of cryptocurrency was a little at odds with each other. That's all.
Sure. And, you know, what, like we discussed earlier today, thank you for meeting with me this morning in the cafeteria, is, you know, we would support a refund of fees because we already do that as a company. If somebody is scammed and provides a police report to us, then we will refund them the fees because that's the amount that we've made off of that transaction, and we don't want to profit off of scams. I understand the concern is someone was talking about how a financial institution will refund you if you've been scammed. That's not actually accurate. A financial institution under Regulation E is only required to refund unauthorized transactions. So an unauthorized transaction is when somebody steals your credit card and uses it at, say, a Walgreens. Walgreens is responsible for that charge because they didn't identify you. They didn't match the credit card number or the credit card name to the ID of the person in front of them. So, you know, a financial institution is not required to refund authorized transactions. So that would be like Venmo or PayPal. If somebody thinks they're buying puppies and they turn out to be scammed, you know, that's an authorized transaction because they authorize PayPal or Venmo or Zelle to send that money per the customer's instructions. So, you know, there are not refunds for those authorized transactions. The way that you prevent those scams from happening is all the things in this bill. You know, customer service, scam warnings, having a chief compliance officer that doesn't own the company. And I think it's important to talk about blockchain analytics. A lot of people say that cryptocurrency is anonymous. You know, technically it's pseudo-anonymous, and I'm a lawyer, so I'm a little stickler for details, and I'm not trying to like insult anybody. It's very confusing. The reason why people say it's anonymous is because the wallet itself doesn't have a name attached to it, but you can trace every transaction on the blockchain. So you know that if a customer sends to a wallet, you can trace if it gets sent to a different wallet or another wallet. And you can't do that with money. Once the money changes hands, you no longer can trace that. So, you know, there are law enforcement, including at the FBI, that say like they like crypto because you can trace all of the transactions. And, you know, this is just an example and it's like a salacious one, so I use it. But at one point, Hamas told its supporters, stop sending us a Bitcoin because the federal government of the US will catch you because they can trace it. Because there's always an on-ramp or an off-ramp for crypto. So you have to buy it from some financial institution like CoinFlip. And then if you want to sell it for US dollars, you have to do that at another financial institution. So that's the way that you control for criminal activity. And that's the way you control for money laundering, frankly, is to make sure that the on and the on-off ramps are very strong and are taking the right KYC and are filing the right federal reports. And we do file currency transaction reports at the appropriate level because that's what we're required to do under FinCEN rules. So, you know, we're doing everything right, and it's, you know, scams are terrible and it shouldn't happen. And that's why we already refund scam victims. And we would support that being put in the bill to refund them their fees so that we're not profiting off of scams.
Questions? Tom?
I need you to help me reconcile here. You say that all of these transactions that you've not seen anything fraudulent, that they were all for legitimate purposes, but yet you can't tell my fellow representative what those transactions are. How can you say that there haven't been any fraudulent transactions when you don't know what those transactions were? Or maybe I'm getting something wrong.
Yeah, so, you know, I would just say that when we were speaking this morning in the cafeteria, I did freely admit that we've had one scam victim in Vermont since this moratorium went into place. And we refunded that victim the entire amount. And out of the 12 transactions that person tried to do, we stopped 2 of them because they triggered our compliance rules and procedures. So, you know, it's like a game of cat and mouse. The scammers are always trying to stay one step ahead of the compliance policies and procedures. So we're always improving and changing our policies and procedures. So, but that's out of 150 customers that we have in Vermont, that there's been, one fraudulent transaction out of 150, like one customer. So that's a very low fraud percentage, which is lower than traditional finance. And we do know our customers and who we're transacting with. So while, because of the nature of cryptocurrency, we can't say for 100% that the person owns the digital wallet because there's no identifying information associated with it. We do know who our customer is because they're standing in front of the kiosk, they're having their photograph taken, and they're providing ID. And, if they're doing more than 3,000, then they're having to give their social security number as well, the source of their funds, the reason for their transaction. So, I can't jump into the mind of our customers and ask them, why are you using our product? Why are you buying crypto? We've done some surveys, they're a little stale. And people have said they like the convenience of it. It's easy. It's at their local grocery store. They've heard from people they should be buying crypto. So this is like an easy way to get into it. Our transactions average is like $800 per transaction. And, this is a way for people to dabble in crypto. And if they're buying Bitcoin, it's been the best performing asset of the decade. So it's been a smart financial decision, regardless of any of us agree with it, right? Like I invest in my 401k and the stocks and bonds could go down, right? It's all a little bit of a gamble, but the kiosks are a safe way for people who want to buy crypto or have to buy crypto with cash to do so. And I know that Vermont is trying to protect people's ability to buy things at stores and restaurants with cash, because after COVID, so many places are only accepting credit cards, but then that leaves out a portion of the population that may not have a credit card or doesn't have a bank, and they go to a restaurant and they can't buy their dinner. That's the same thing that would happen here, where people wouldn't be able to buy crypto, and then they can't participate in the digital economy, which, we may not all agree on it, but, our company at least thinks that's the future, and the way to democratize finance is to allow everyday people to buy crypto.
I'm just going to push back on that and then I'll stop. I appreciate that you're admitting there was one fraudulent transaction, but of those additional 150, how many people were frauded but are too embarrassed to say anything?
I mean, that's a rhetorical question, obviously, because I can't say that. And that's an argument that I get very often is, we give fraud data and we show that it's very low. And then the response is, well, people just don't report fraud. And of course, that happens, right? But if people don't report fraud, how are we supposed to stop it, right? And it would be very surprising to me that somebody who has lost money doesn't try to recover it somehow, either by reporting it to law enforcement, reporting it to the AG's office, the Department of Financial Regulation, or to us, right? And all they have to do is call our customer service and we'll send them a form to fill out, right? So we don't make it onerous for someone to report a scam. So I totally understand that argument, and I agree that the data cannot be 100% accurate, but we also have to rely on the data that we have from the state of Vermont, which was at the time of this moratorium, no scams. And since then, we've had one, customer who has been defrauded, who has been made full, because we refunded them.
So that's really good to hear, Larry, that, when someone came to you and fraudulent transaction, you refunded it. That's a sign of a good actor, I think. But it raises the question, we may not know everyone, but, you were saying, I think 1 out of, would you say 150, 140?
Yeah, that's the number of our customers. Yeah, about 150.
Yeah. And if that's the case, why wouldn't you be comfortable then with a refund, provision that would make folks whole if the number is really pretty small, but it does happen? And what would be the problem in having a more vigorous refund provision?
Right. So what we discussed, that resulted in a double loss to the company, both the crypto we purchased from somebody else at a premium, and then also the money that's been put into the machine. And, we are uncomfortable with a legally mandated refund of the full amount because, there have been 2 states that have passed refund provisions, Connecticut and Minnesota. And those refund provisions are not working because what they say is that if somebody files a police report, we're required to give them a refund. And they have to file a police report within a certain number of days, but they don't have to let us know within that same number of days. So people are reporting to the police maybe the same day that they've been scammed, but then they're reporting to us on the last day possible that they want a refund, meaning that we can't take any steps to stop the transaction from completing. So if someone is, if this committee believes that a refund provision is required, while we can't agree to it, we won't fight it if it's in exchange for there not being a ban on the industry. And we would just ask that we be involved in drafting that language so that we can address the issues that we've, come up upon in Minnesota and Connecticut, so that the customer, the victim, has to report it to us the same day that they report it to the police. Because then we can test out compliance policies and procedures to prevent the fraud or prevent the transaction from completing. Because sometimes our transactions are not instantaneous. So if somebody knows, I've heard people testifying at hearings across the country that they realized they were scammed immediately after they put the money in the machine. They calmed down, they're like, oh my gosh, I've been scammed. If that person called us immediately, we could block that transaction from happening and then the crypto never gets sent. But if they, call the police immediately and then the police don't tell us for 3 weeks, the crypto has already been sent. So then we're out the money and we're out the crypto. So there is a way to do a refund provision that, within an entire bill with these other, other consumer protection aspects in it, and the daily transaction limits that are in this and the fee cap that's in here, where, we would be comfortable with it, right? We're not going to be happy where we have to refund people, but I get what you're saying, and that's something that we could compromise on.
Other questions for Larry? Aaron, any input?
I don't want to change the subject, but I just wanted to request that DFR gets a little more time on the 2 studies. As you know, we're currently down a permanent commissioner. We don't have a director of policy, so we're happy to help and do the work. I think we just need at least a little more time.
How much time?
How much can you give me, sir? January 15th of the following year, maybe 2 months.
Our problem is we can't, in the second year of a biennium, we have to have our drafting requests in, I think, in December.
Oh, okay.
That's why it was early.
You could
We could
submit a short form
submit a
even.
short form, submit a short form in anticipation. So if you could, maybe we could write in November 15th, whether or not you anticipate legislation. And then we could put a short form request in, and then when things are done, when the report's done by January 15th. Would that work for you?
I'll be happy to get any extra time as possible. So yes, that would be the next best thing.
Okay, so just be a check-in maybe with the chairs of the committees.
Okay.
And just letting us know that there's anticipation of legislative language coming soon, and that we could then put a short form in, and that would take care of it.
Okay.
All right. Committee on, and then on the other subject of the kiosks, do you have any other input that you'd like to give us?
Just Larry mentioned the fraud case. That was a fraud case that was reported to DFR, and then we brought it up to CoinFlip, and they did refund the customer those funds. So we do appreciate them working to make that whole.
What was the time frame of that?
I believe it's in 2025. I don't remember the specific details.
Yeah, it was about a month ago. I don't remember the exact date, but
Yeah.
What was the time frame of the person who was defrauded?
Well, that was
the time that they notified you and then you notified CoinFlip.
I don't know how quickly the consumer realized that she was defrauded to notifying us off the top of my head. But we would have sent CoinFlip probably the next day the actual complaint file to address.
Larry, how long does it take for you before you transmit complete the transaction?
So it depends right now. It used to be almost instantaneously, and then it switched to probably within an hour because we were batching transactions so that there would be less fees on the blockchain. Right now, we are testing hold periods in a number of states to see if, we hold the crypto for 24 or 48 or 72 hours, if that will help to prevent some of these scams from happening where people have an opportunity. This is for new customers to have an opportunity to realize they've been scammed and contact us. And I just wanted to note that, while we believe a hold period can be effective as a compliance policy, when it is legally mandated in a bill, it's not as effective because then the scammers know how long to string somebody along while, until the crypto gets sent. So we think that, the refund provision could force operators who are not thinking as proactively as us to do a hold, because if there's like if somebody has, say, 4 days or 3 days to report that they've been defrauded, you can hold the crypto for that time period and not send it to them. And then if they report that they've been defrauded, there's no loss because we still have the crypto and we still have the cash. But when you mandate it in a bill, it's like instructions to a scam artist on what they need to do. So that's why we have it here, like having a chief compliance officer that doesn't own the company and compliance policies and procedures, things like that, because you have to do that behind the scenes so that the scammers don't know how long it is. So that test is still ongoing, and we think that it is working based on our initial testing. So that is something that we're looking to roll out across the country once we sort of get it right. So, that I think the hold period can help mitigate damages for the operators in terms of that refund provision. And that's why it's so important for it to be a requirement that the customer and or the regulator or law enforcement lets us know as soon as possible so that we can try to prevent that crypto from being sent, if there has been a scam.
Committee, what do you want to do? We've heard, so there's different scenarios we could do. We can, we could work with Larry, with Aaron, with Maria. Maria, you going on vacation during time we're out? I won't be working with Maria. I guess, first of all, what's the committee want to do?
So I really want to know that information about what's going on with those funds.
Well, I think that's kind of a point that you're never going to know why people are sending money.
Well, so the specific question that I had was, and how long are the funds being held in an account for 1 year? If those funds are being held in an account for 1 year, my concerns of drug activity, criminal activity, and fraud kind of alleviate, and then I feel a little more comfortable thinking about not banning. I guess, and that's probably not.
Yeah, because I mean, you could buy crypto and keep it in your wallet, and 2 weeks later it jumps 50%, and you say, I'm bailing and I'm going to take my money. Right?
True. I'm not, and
I don't know, Larry, is that possible that you even know how long someone keeps crypto in their wallet?
Yeah, so we are able to use blockchain analytics we do this regularly, and we do this for all transactions. So when somebody sends crypto to the wallet that they've given to us, we still monitor that that crypto and that wallet to see if it moves again at a later date. Because if it moves to a wallet that's been flagged as high risk right after a wallet where a customer gave it to us, that's an indication that there's fraud. So we submit a suspicious activity report and we flag that account, and we have to speak to that customer before they can transact again. So it's not, if it goes to a high risk wallet, that's an indication of fraud. If it moves to a new wallet that's not a high risk wallet, that's not an indication of fraud, because like you said, they could be selling it and it's getting transferred to somebody else. They could have bought something, or they may just have multiple wallets, because people don't like to have large amounts in each one of their wallets, just in case someone, hacks their password that they have stored, say, in their Gmail or something. So that in itself is not fraudulent. But the data that's being requested, I think that we can get that. It's a new request, and we would need a couple days to do it. I haven't even got back to, I'm still in transit. So I've requested that the compliance team start working on this, but I certainly won't have it today, unfortunately.
Absent that information, my thought is to pay out. But even if I had that information, I don't know if that would change my feelings.
I just want to comment on his thing about holding it for my understanding of the way these things work. Once it's in the wallet, they have no control over what they do with it. So what you would be doing is that person, say they wanted to put $500 in crypto, it would sit in limbo for a year. And then when that year was up, they would be at the mercy of the crypto market. So if the Bitcoin was trashed, they would maybe get they could get nothing, or $50 was soaring. It might work out really well, but then it puts them in a situation, because now they're having to buy it at whatever rate. That's my understanding. Maybe Larry, if you can elaborate on that.
Sure. So once a customer, customers are required to send to a wallet that they own or control. The way we control for that is having a checkbox on one of the kiosk screens that says, I agree that I'm sending to a wallet I own or control. And then once that crypto is sent to their wallet, we no longer have control over that crypto, because we do not host wallets. We do not control the crypto. That's one of the value propositions of our company, is that we don't have access to your crypto, so we can't steal it from you like FTX did. So once the crypto's in that digital wallet that the customer owns, they can do whatever they want with it, which would be any various things. They could send it to somebody they know, a friend. They could do a remittance to a family member in Mexico, which is faster and cheaper than Western Union, and safer, frankly, because gangs stake out the locations of the money service businesses in Mexico and, beat you up or take a chunk of it. They can buy something on the internet, and, frankly, someone could do something nefarious with it, right? But the blockchain analytics should flag that if it's going to a wallet that's been identified as high risk. So a high risk wallet is something that's been associated with drug activity, the Silk Road, the dark web, child pornography. Online gambling is considered a higher risk wallet. It's not the highest risk, but it would trigger a compliance review. So, customers could buy from us and then sell the next day for a profit or for a loss. Does that answer the question?
I'm good. Emily.
Hi, Larry. Just to
Yes.
confirm, you said that your company doesn't have a crypto wallet?
So we offer an unhosted crypto wallet. So there's differences between a hosted wallet and an unhosted wallet. So we allow, through our mobile application, a customer to create an unhosted wallet, which means we do not have access to those funds. A company like Coinbase, they offer an unhosted or a hosted wallet. A hosted wallet is where the company has access to the crypto because they know your 12-word password, so that they can then, if you lose that 12-word password, they can recover it for you and they can access your crypto. So we do not create wallets. We allow someone through our mobile application to easily access their wallet on the blockchain, but we cannot access the crypto inside of that wallet at any time.
Okay, so the CoinFlip wallet that you all offer basically would link to somebody's Coinbase wallet or something like that?
Someone could use a Coinbase wallet at our kiosk. They couldn't access their Coinbase wallet through the CoinFlip mobile application. They could import their Coinbase wallet to the CoinFlip mobile application, and then they're accessing it through the CoinFlip CoinFlip mobile application.
Okay, so because I'm looking on your website and it says introducing the CoinFlip wallet. And
Yep.
so for your unhosted CoinFlip wallet, who, where is that tethered to, or how is the customer having a relationship to this product?
Yeah, so the way for digital wallets to access your funds is through the 12-word key phrase, it's called. So it's 12 words that is your password to access your digital wallet. So someone could create an unhosted wallet through our mobile application, and then they can import that wallet to a different mobile application by using those 12 words. That's the key phrase. Or they could, if you were technologically savvy, you can access your wallet through a website on the blockchain, but it's like difficult and time consuming. And that's why companies have created mobile applications to access the digital wallet. So as long as the customer has their 12-word key phrase, they can move their wallet to whatever platform that they want. And people can use whatever wallet they want, any companies at our mobile app, at our kiosk.
Okay. I'm still a little confused as to the CoinFlip wallet. If it's unhosted, does the customer need to have a hosted third-party app attached to it?
No. So they could, so the way that they transact at the kiosk is the way to access your wallet is through a QR code. So if you want someone to send you cryptocurrency, you send them your public wallet address, which is accessible on the blockchain. That allows, CoinFlip to know this is where to send the crypto. And that is usually done through a QR code that you scan instead of, you could type out the letters and numbers, but obviously that's very prone to error because it's a long string of letters and numbers. So you scan your QR code, the public address is available. We send to that public address, but having the public address, we cannot then, once it's sent, we can't recall the crypto and we can't access it. And nobody else can recall or access it unless it's a hosted wallet, meaning a financial institution has that 12 words as well as you having those 12 words.
Okay.
So that's like your password.
Okay. And so for the general customer, are they going to understand the difference between a hosted wallet and a not hosted wallet?
I think so, because we recommend that customers use an unhosted wallet, and we have educational materials on our website, because an unhosted wallet is safer because your crypto, you won't lose your crypto if Coinbase goes bankrupt, right? So, there's a phrase in crypto, it's not your keys, not your crypto. If you don't have your 12 keywords, then it's not your crypto. So I think people who are buying crypto should generally understand the difference between hosted and unhosted. And if they don't, they can call our customer service. That's 24 hours a day, and someone can explain that to them.
Okay, thank you.
So I just want to be clear what I was referring to and the reason why I was asking for the information. I wasn't suggesting that after a year you return the funds. What I was trying to ascertain was the habits and what people are doing with this crypto process with the kiosks. If a person is putting money into a crypto wallet and it's staying there for a year, they're not doing anything. The chances of them doing something nefarious is very unlikely. They're investing. But if the money is going in and then out, either my thought is, and how I would perceive it would be either nefarious or there's money that's being transferred to either out of country or at least out of state. That would be my guess. And that's the reason why I would like to know that information, is because I want to have an idea of, are we talking about people investing in crypto or they're doing things with it?
I think what Larry has gotten to is telling us that through their analytics that they can tell when crypto moves out of a wallet and if it's going to another wallet that has been flagged as being high risk, then they know that and they report it. Otherwise, if it's not a high risk, And it could be somebody just moving it to another relative or moving it to another wallet that they have, buying something. So it almost sounds like they're doing that now through their analytics.
Right.
Only I just want us to not forget the original kiosk report that we got. I pulled it back up. I haven't read it for a little while. That has some really robust recommendations that DFR had. And I guess when I was referring to, like, if we have robust protections, like, for example, what DFR has recommended, I think that is also a really legitimate way to go. It includes, I think, a 7-day period where for a first-time user where they could get a refund. So, maybe one thing we could do is step back and go back, read that report again and be like, are we comfortable with that? I don't know, Larry, are you comfortable with the DFR's recommendations in their report?
I think most of those are in here. There are some additional ones that are not in here. We at CoinFlip didn't draft this bill itself, so we're certainly willing to work with whoever you recommend to come up with, a bill that everyone's comfortable with, including DFR, right? There may be some areas where we debate, like how long should a new customer period be? We think it should be 72 hours, and that's what, Minnesota and Connecticut have done, right? So the Minnesota model is a new user is defined as their first 72 hours. And for that first 72 hours, they can buy $2,000 a day. And then after that 72 hours elapses, a customer has 14 days to report that they've been defrauded. And then they get a full refund of their first 3 transactions during that 72-hour period. And then when they become an existing user, there is no limit to the amount that they can purchase. I would say that, that's up to each state to determine what the top threshold should be. My recommendation is that it should be at least the same as the federal gift card level, which is 10,000, right? But each state has a different risk tolerance. And, we were generally comfortable with the Minnesota model, but the Minnesota model did not have these additional consumer protections in it, like blockchain analytics, having a chief compliance officer doesn't own the company. So this, we want states to go farther than what Minnesota did. But if you start with the Minnesota model plus additional consumer protections, I think then that addresses all of the stuff in that DFR report. And I'd be happy to work with whoever to, get that confirmed and to do a red line of this in conjunction with Aaron or whoever wanted to work with us.
Hi, Larry. If I recall, you said that you were doing research, working on that gap of how long it took for batching, that it wasn't just instantaneous, and that your company was doing research to try and figure out what that duration is. Do you have an idea of how long before you have results on that you think that study would be done?
So I guess I would want it will never be done, right? Because we're always doing research to improve our compliance policies and procedures. So, we've found we're not sure yet whether customers like it or don't like it. Obviously, a customer who's been scammed would like it because we can send them their crypto back. But one of the value propositions of crypto is that it's instantaneously transferable. And there are people who are day traders who want their crypto right away, perhaps, or they want to buy something, so they want their crypto right away. So there is the chance that it affects our customers negatively, but you have to balance that with the consumer protection. And by having a hold on those new customers, right, that's where the balance is struck, right? So we'll probably settle on something like a 24-hour or 72-hour hold across the country, but it also will depend on, how long do customers have under a statute to report to us that they've been defrauded? Because what we're trying to do is prevent the loss to the customer and also prevent the loss to us, frankly.
So do you have, as you said, you might ultimately land on a recommendation for 24 hours or 72 or something. Do you have a sense of when that might be? When you might settle on that?
I think the thing is that it will always be evolving, right? So we're never going to have, it's going to be 24 hours forever. It changes, and it changes for various states because we see the scam topologies change all the time. Like we we're working with the FBI on a case where there's, I can't go into the details, but there were people scamming people. And, we worked with the FBI to discover it. So we changed our compliance policies and procedures so that those scammers couldn't do the same thing to our customers, right? So the hold period will always be evolving, and there will never be a right amount of time because it will change over time, frankly. It'll change as, at some point the scammers will move on and go back to gift cards, or they'll use some other financial services product to scam people, and then there won't be as much happening at the kiosks. And another example would be, we learned that people were saying they were buying stable coins. Stable coins are pegged to the US dollar. So it's always worth, one stable coin is always worth $1. And we had customers telling us they were buying stable coin for investment purposes. And that's just not, you can't buy stable coins for investment purposes. You buy stable coins to buy things. So then we changed our policies and procedures, and we're not allowing people to transact if they said that, because we knew that there was something going on. They either didn't understand crypto or didn't understand, or were being scammed, right? So that's what I'm not trying to like dance around the issue. I'm just saying that I guess I don't know the question. Like what are you looking for? Because
Yeah, I mean, so yeah, to tell you what I'm looking for, I guess I'm thinking that if you had a sense of what that duration would be, tying that in with your statement that you might be willing to work on a refund, which would meet Representative Olson's part of his concerns. If you had a sense of how long it would be before you knew what that time frame was, then that would allow us to know when we could think about legislation. Otherwise, I'd probably recommend that we wait another year until you give us that information.
Yeah, so I can get an update on that. I know from sort of anecdotal evidence, we're learning that a 72-hour hold seems to be the sweet spot, between 48 and 72 hours, because that allows a customer enough time to cool down after the scammer stops like harassing them on the phone, to realize they've been scammed and then contact law enforcement. But what's missing from the Minnesota and Connecticut bills is they're not required, or law enforcement is not required to also tell us at the same time, because a 14 or a 30-day hold, our customers would go crazy, right? Because they think that we were scamming them. And we actually are getting calls from our customers saying, hey, I didn't get my crypto. Are you scamming me? Like, what's going on? One of our competitors in Colorado testified that some of their customer service agents are getting death threats, which is crazy because people aren't getting their crypto right away. And that has not happened at our company, right? But people do call and complain, and they're complaining and saying, hey, I'm supposed to get my crypto right away. Why is it not here yet? And then we explain to them, this is for consumer protection and to make sure you're not being scammed, and you'll get it within the next couple days. And then generally they're okay, right? But we don't want to advertise to people the hold is 26 hours, because then the scammer knows that as well. So that's why, I think that a refund provision paired with a requirement that either law enforcement or the regulator or the customer inform us within 24 hours of reporting into law enforcement could be a workable model.
Is there a robust means whereby the new consumer has to, click on something or otherwise acknowledge that they are aware of the time period for reporting potential fraud in somewhere in the transaction, so we know that they know, if you understand what I'm trying to ask here?
Yeah, so right now, Minnesota and Connecticut do not have that requirement. So that is not on the screens currently, but we certainly could add that to the legally mandated disclosures where somebody has to click, okay, I understand that, right? So it would say, if you are defrauded, you have to report this to law enforcement within X days, and within X days thereafter report it to the operator, and I'm just like ad-libbing. We could, make it prettier language, but yeah, that's something that we could add to a screen. We already have a couple warnings and disclosure screens, so that's not something that would be problematic.
Thank you.
So again, where do you want to go? My thoughts after listening more to this whole conversation is that I think we could find a path working with DFR to, I think, mitigate most of the issues that are there with a refund somehow, working with Larry and others. Maybe using that Minnesota model that we then make it a little bit more robust than it is now, with some of the things that we've already drafted. I think that's a place that we could go if the committee is willing to go that route. I don't know that we have time to do anything before crossover because our plate is pretty full. But I think we could have a conversation with our Senate counterparts to include that in this bill when it goes over. And I think we could help get that drafted to help them a little bit if that's where the committee would be interested in going. Emily?
Oh, hi. I just was wondering about if on the ATMs there is information, like reporting information and contact information if people are finding themselves in a questionable situation. I guess either for CoinFlip directly, and then also does DFR put any, I guess he's not here, shoot. But if there are any like warnings on them to help people find their way to complain.
Yeah, so we publish our 24-hour a day customer service number is on the kiosk itself, on the physical kiosk. We call it the skin. That's like the sticker on top of it. And it's on every screen on the kiosk, so people know to call us. There is a decal that goes on each kiosk that's approved by DFR, and I believe that has the number for DFR on there for reporting purposes. And we do this in some states. We're comfortable putting like, if you need help, please call DFR at X number, right? So that when it comes to warnings and disclosures or anything notifying people, we're not going to fight you on that because we already do that, and we're happy to hear ways to improve on what we do, and happy to we want to have customers be as informed as possible.
Thank you.
So I'm comfortable with the process that you were suggesting, Chair. I will say that what I'm thinking of is a robust refund proposal. I don't know if it's really going to be compatible with the business, what makes business sense for them. Just to let people know about that. I'm only one person, in terms of what I'm thinking about a refund, but I'm comfortable with your overall approach.
All ears.
I'm good with what you're saying. Maybe take some time. When's the moratorium end that we have now?
Well, we can't let the moratorium end.
Right, but
Because then all the others that were in Vermont are coming back without any robust regulation on.
Well, yeah, I guess that's where I'm going is if we don't think we can deal with this bill before that moratorium ends, we should extend the moratorium. But I think it's worth it to do that and maybe hash this out better if.
So just one point on that, in Vermont, you have to get a decal that's approved by DFR to place a kiosk. So, DFR could control whether or not new kiosks get placed by not giving out new decals, right? So even if the moratorium expires, it's illegal for someone to just place a new kiosk without that decal from DFR.
We can have that discussion with Aaron. So we're not gonna be able to move this tonight because you need to make some changes, Maria. So I think tomorrow we'll move the bill. I think in the meantime, maybe we have a discussion with the chair of Senate Finance, see what her thoughts are. And does it work for everybody if we just continue the conversation, try to come up with the right measures that Senate Finance could tack on to the bill and send it back over, and you would be amendable to that.
Yes, would we put in this bill, put a moratorium in as a placeholder or not?
We'll have to talk to Aaron about that as
Okay.
well.
And I could draft that refund language as we've discussed, by tomorrow and send that to Aaron if that's what this committee wants. If that's at all helpful.
That may be real helpful. Maybe it's something that, if the rest of the bill is okay with DFR and that would help push it over, we could tack it on to the bill.
Okay, so I will directly contact Aaron and work with our lobbyists to get that done, and we can give proposed language to DFR, even today. But, it's getting late, so I'm not sure anybody will work on that, but by tomorrow, that, as long as DFR approves it, we can get that done tomorrow.
Okay. All right, let's do that. And we'll gather again tomorrow. If you could make those changes, Maria, and then
Sure.
we'll, that means we have a whole bill that we have to go through as well.
Sure.
Which means I gotta see if I have time. Try to find that time. Yeah, the main thing is to get 137 out of here before crossover. And we only have the rest of this week and the week we come back. So, we can get it ready to go, and we'll try to find time the week we come back to go through the bill itself.
So when you say you want to go through the whole thing
Well,
tomorrow,
so it's not even out yet. It was never released. The language is there, the draft is there.
okay, I see what you're talking about, that proposal.
Yes. So the
Okay.
whole proposal for crypto.
Virtual
Right.
currency kiosk
Yeah.
proposal. Yep, it doesn't include all of the DFR recommendations, but it has some of them, and I can attempt to add as many as possible. And then whatever refund language comes in tomorrow, I can ensure that is included.
Okay. Let's do that and then see what that looks like. Maybe Friday we can find time to try to finish it up. That work for everybody? Okay,
And we don't vote on 137 because we're not going to keep it.
well, Maria needs to make those time changes, and I guess we'll hold on to it as a vehicle to move this. If we can get to that point.
Great.
And if not, we gotta move it, and then we can see what we can do on the other side. Okay, let's do that if everybody's good with that. Okay.
Keep that bathwater warm.
Larry, thanks. Sorry we held you up. Hopefully
Not at all.
you missed your flight.
No, I'm in Boston tonight, so I go back to Chicago tomorrow.
Okay, great, perfect. Everybody's good? Okay, back here at 9 o'clock tomorrow, we need to talk about budget stuff. So,
We didn't talk about mine.
yeah,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
You can go off
Bye,
live.
everybody.
Night.
Night.
Feel better.
Better.